We are so close to the release of Pokemon Sword and Shield at this point, less than a month to go, and the hype is starting to reach an all-time high. While we know some details about the game, we definitely don't know all, and there are plenty of things that we're just gonna have to wait on to see how they'll pan out. That's why, in the meantime, just as a bit of fun, I've decided to ask myself the question, what if I directed Pokemon Sword and Shield? If I was in charge of everything, what would I do with all of these new characters and Pokemon, and what would I have their role and contribution to the story of the game be? Well, I'm gonna answer these questions and many more in this video, but one disclaimer is that I can't just make anything up at this point. I've got to work with what we already know about and only discuss what I would do with what's already confirmed, just so things don't get too crazy. What is actually pretty crazy though is the fact that I have merch available right now on TeePublic, and you can grab these designs, including this fancy Pokemon Cardinal poster, for yourself with the link in the description, with every purchase directly supporting the production of videos on this channel. Any support is massively appreciated, and with that said, on to the video. So the first thing I want to get into are the rivals, and so far they have been amazing. They all seem to have the right personalities and motives to make for excellent characters and rivals in and of themselves, but just based on what we know about them so far, this is what I would do if I were in charge. Starting with Hop, we know that he wants to be like his brother, and that's his motivation for becoming champion, so I would simply take that and make sure it's a more integral part of the story. Pokemon are definitely guilty of setting up a scenario like that only to have it not really go anywhere, so I would just make it a little more intense, a little more important, and have that backstory actually mean something and be significant instead of just being a sort of empty, meaningless element of their characters. With Marnie and Bede though, they definitely become a little more serious with what they're doing. Marnie is sort of involved, but not technically a part of Team Yell, and is out to become champion for a very specific reason, although what that is we do not yet know. First things first, I would keep her as like this separate entity from Team Yell and not have her actually be a member, and secondly, I would also have her not really be related to anyone, at least on the evil side of things, since both of those things were essentially already done in Generation 7 with Gladion and Lily. So basically, I would make sure that whatever she's after provides for a big twist to really grip you into the story and put you on the edge of your seat, but it doesn't repeat what's already been done with similar characters in the past. And finally, when it comes to Bede, I'll just come out and say it. I would love if he was one of the main villains of the game. We already know he's a jerk, he seems to be pretty antagonistic, he has it in with Chairman Rose, who also seems to be evil, so I would personally make him also as evil as possible just because a rival has never truly been the main antagonist or any kind of true antagonist at all, and I just think that would be such a fresh new dynamic for the series. He is probably a little young to be the main bad guy though, so with that said, I would also like to have it not be Chairman Rose that's pulling the strings behind the scenes. This sort of segues from talking about rivals to the evil team, which we will also get into in a sec, but I would personally prefer Chairman Rose to not be the main villain, since once again, a person who seems good being the bad guy was just done last generation with Lusamine, so I personally feel like we need something fresh. It seems like there is some corruption going on within the Galar League, which I am definitely here for, I just don't want Chairman Rose to be the one who's behind it all. And now officially getting into the evil team segment of what Sword and Shield is all about and what I would like them to do, I believe based on what we know, we've got a pretty good start. Team Yell might not be a super intimidating set of villains, but they do something that's super important these days, and that's something fresh and unique. As I said earlier, they have a distinct connection to Marnie, and her success is why they do what they do. They basically want to prevent everyone else from winning the league, so she has the opportunity to do so, which once again is super unique. It seems like they might have something to gain from whatever it is Marnie is trying to win the league for, so really all I think I could really ask of them is to have this goal be legitimate, something that can actually cause some harm to people so they have a sense of danger danger about them, but just like with their premise, have it be unique. This is once again a great segue because we'll be getting into this later, but I don't want Team Yell to have anything to do with the Legendaries whatsoever. That has been the motivation for the evil team since Gen 3, and frankly, it's time to do something new. Be nefarious, endanger the region, do whatever you gotta do to feel like a real threat. Just don't follow that classic trope of needing to kidnap the Legendary for its power. That storyline is played out at this point, and it's really time for something new and fresh, which would also benefit the Legendaries themselves. So this is really a kill two birds with one stone kind of situation, because you get a unique yet serious evil team with unique and serious goals and actions, and then likewise you get Legendaries who also get to have their own new role, which is exactly what we're going to talk about next. So given that Zacian and Zamazenta are on the cover for the box art of the games themselves, it's pretty safe to assume they are going to feature similarly to Legendaries of the past. But if I was in charge here, we would be changing things up significantly. The trope of the evil team using the Legendaries as a source of power for their evil schemes has been around, as I said, since Generation 3, and while it obviously makes a ton of sense, so it's not inherently a bad way to go, it's just been done a little bit too consistently at this point. I've mentioned this before, but I really loved the days of specifically Generation 2, where the Legendaries had a presence, you knew they were there, but the evil team wasn't their role in the story. In fact, they really didn't have much of any role in the story at all, and were just these elusive secret beings that you heard about in stories that traveled on the wind per se, and tracking them down was this huge mystery that you had to unravel for yourself. That is what I want Sword and Shield to do. I would maybe amend it a little to say that they could have some type of role in the story, just so long as it's not as the target of the villain, but aside from that, the emphasis should be on making the capturing of these creatures elusive, mysterious, and downright puzzling. The actual director of Sword and Shield himself, Shigeru Omori, has gone on record and said that they want Zacian and Zamazenta to be sort of like a myth in that no one is really sure if they even exist. So I'm hopeful that that entails a more secretive nature for them in the games, but all things considered, that is definitely what I would do with these two Wolf Legendaries if it were up to me. Now we're going to get into something that's a bit up in the air at this point, and that's the gyms. We know gyms are a huge part of these games because the Galar League is taking center stage in this story, but how they will actually operate is a bit unclear at this point. The reason for that is because 1, we know there are version exclusive gyms in the game, which technically means that overall, there are more than just 8 gym leaders in Galar. This was further expanded upon in a recent Game Informer interview, where it was first reported that there would be 18 gyms in the game, but then that statement was retracted to say that you can't battle all of them, and that some of those 18 are in the minor league, which just contribute to the background of the story, so basically it's just one big confusing mess. But with that said, we do still know that there are more than 8 gyms, as I said, and are going to contribute to the background of the story as part of this minor league. So if I was the guy who got to make this all make sense, I would take full advantage of this concept and get as much out of it as I could. First, even if the gyms from this minor league cannot be battled, I would still have them in the game, with the leaders still able to be met and interacted with. There's really no reason not to do this since you've already created these gym leaders for opposite versions of the game anyway, and having more significant characters in each game to talk to just adds to the gameplay overall. Second, I would absolutely have them contribute to the story, because in a game where the gym challenge is the main focus, how could you not? Having gym leaders actually play a significant role and not just stay in their gyms all day is something that fans have actually consistently wanted to see, with not many results to speak of so far. However, all of the pieces are there for it to happen this time around, and I mean, just imagine some nefarious corruption going on within the Galar League, and you get to work with some of these minor league gym leaders to uncover and expose the misdeeds of whoever is behind it all. Likewise, maybe the minor league gym leaders are actually actually being recruited to be a part of the corruption, and you discover this as you continue to go throughout the story. Either one of these are a quality option, to be honest, and I would definitely have these leaders contribute to the game significantly if I was the one putting it all together. And last but not least, the final thing I want to go over in this video are the namesake of the games themselves, the Pokemon. Now, with the latest trailer for the games showing off 5 Kanto-based Gigantamax forms, people are once again worried that these forms, as well as the regional variants, are going to be oversaturated with Kanto Pokemon like they were in Sun and Moon. And while I don't think that will be the case for a number of reasons, here's how I would handle it if I were directing the games. First, I don't think it's bad at all that they've shown and used these Kanto forms in the marketing, because Gen 1 is definitely the most marketable gen, so showing that stuff off just makes sense from an advertising standpoint, and therefore it also makes sense to have it in the game. But at the same time, I would not have it take up such a huge chunk of available space for these types of Pokemon either. With Alola forms, we received about 10 different families of Pokemon with these regional variants, so we can presume that we'll get a similar number of Galar forms in Sword and Shield as well. With that said, we currently have seen 4 different families of Galar forms, with 3 of them being Kanto-based, and that's exactly how I would personally keep it. That way, 30% of the regional variants come out of Kanto, which is still a really good portion, but then that leaves roughly 7 other families of Pokemon from other regions that can receive a new form, which completely blows the door wide open in terms of possibilities, and gives us a nice handful of non-Kanto variants as well. The same thing goes for Gigantamax Pokemon too. Although it is harder to say how many we will ultimately receive, I think a 70-30 split is definitely reasonable and allows for a little bit of everything, which is what we all want as Pokemon fans. I really don't have anything I can say with the standard Pokemon though, because they have all been great so far, other than the fact that I would definitely not make Scorbunny into a part fighting type, and instead would probably go for electric based on its design. But one other thing I will say is that I would definitely add an evolution in Sword and Shield. I know I said I'd only be dealing with things that we know about for sure, but I mean, we know old Pokemon are getting evolutions, so I'm gonna allow it. Frankly, it's just time for another one at this point. The people want it, and it does nothing but help the perception of the game overall, so yes, that would be a no-brainer. As far as the type of this evolution goes, I would probably lean slightly more towards Steel, but Dragon is a pretty perfect fit as well, and would also be amazing to see. So all in all, that's what I would do if I was directing Pokemon Sword and Shield. But now the question is, what would you do if you were in charge? Let me know in the comments below, give the video a like if you enjoyed it, subscribe for more Sword and Shield content all the time, and check me out on Spotify and give my Pokemon Cardinal project a watch if you would like to support the channel further, and all of that is super appreciated. I'll be back on Thursday with another video as well, so until then, as always, I love you guys, and I will smell you guys later.